Introducing slightly cooler air for Wednesday. Again, most places dry with plenty of sunshine, but temperatures won't be as high. We're still looking at very warm conditions, mid to high 20s across the south, low 20s further north. That's more typical for the time of year, but not quite as high, certainly in the south, as these current couple of days. That cold front is the reason why it pushes away the heat, but as high pressure builds back in, we could see the heat building once more during this weekend, particularly so across the south.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs and Co, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking today. I'll tell you what's got me talking today. Let's talk about tax, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Yeah, don't worry, I won't give up my day job, but if I did want to give up my day job, I'd be packed full with work. I'll tell you for why. Number one, pretty much anything everyone's talking about today is indeed tax. Do we need to get ourselves into a lower tax economy? And you and me, the videos, they're popping up absolutely everywhere. These candidates, 11 of them so far, fantastic videos telling us all the things that they are going to do for us. Will they really deliver? What is the process going to be? The 1922 committee are meeting to figure it all out. So we'll have the latest on all of that as well. And, you know, never mind the Tories, Keir Starmer has got it all sorted out. I'll tell you, he's been speaking today. He's going to reboot the economy, revitalise our public services and re-energise our communities. Ooh, sounds good. But what does it mean? How will Keir Starmer re-energise you? Tell me. And get this, by the time I come off air, 10 cars will have been stolen. Yes, you heard that right. 10 cars during this programme will have been nicked. That's the kind of rate that cars are getting nicked these days. You know it's not me, because I'm sitting here on air, but who is it that's doing it? The police, I can tell you now, they won't seem to have a clue because they barely seem to be paying much attention when it comes to things like the theft of cars, bits and pieces in them and on them. Are we in a situation where we have to accept basic levels of crime, petty crime? Is that really how society should be? You tell me. But first, let's have a look at the latest news headlines.
Michelle, thank you. The top story. Boris Johnson says he's determined to use his final few weeks to deliver the prime ministerial mandate he was elected on. Speaking in his first public appearance since resigning as Tory leader, he refused to endorse any of the 11 candidates running to replace him. And the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, is the latest senior cabinet minister to add her name to the hopefuls list. The Prime Minister says throwing his weight behind any of the candidates could potentially damage their chances.
My job is really just to oversee the process for the next few weeks, and I'm sure that the outcome will be good. And we just need to get on. And as I said, I think before to you, the more we focus on the people, on the people who elect us, on their jobs, their hopes, what they can get out of investment in science and technology. The more we talk about the future that we're trying to build, the less we talk about politics at Westminster, the generally happier we will all be.
Well, the former Health Secretary Sajid Javid has warned the Conservative Party faces electoral oblivion if they don't change. Officially launching his campaign to become the next leader, he called for the Tory party to pull together and avoid poisonous gossip during the contest.
While families are limiting their weekly shop, politicians are getting caught up in arguments over who knew the latest sleaze allegations and when. And this isn't just bad for the country, it's catastrophic for all the Conservatives. Because when we lose our integrity, we lose the trust of the British people.
So, what happens now? Well, a timetable for the Tory leadership contest is expected to be drawn up this week. That's once the new executive has been voted into the 1922 committee. And that's the influential group of Conservative backbenchers who are then going to finalise the rules of the leadership contest. That could include changes to the limit the number of candidates that can run. They're also looking to change the rules governing a no confidence vote. That's something the Labour Party's also pushing for in order to attempt to immediately remove Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. And Sir Keir Starmer has accused the candidates of running to lead the Conservative Party of desperately trying to launder their integrity. In a speech in Newcastle, the Labour leader said Britain was dealing with a crumbling economy and deserved better. He also hit out at what he called the hypocrisy of those who served in the Prime Minister's government, saying they supported tax hikes despite being opposed to them all along.
Well, what we've seen this weekend from all the Tory candidates who want to be leader of their party is £200 billion of unfunded spending commitments. And my challenge to them is say precisely where that money is coming from. Is it going to be cut? If so, what's going to be cut? Because we need to know. Is it going to be borrowing? If so, where are you borrowing from? How much are you borrowing? Or is it just the magic money tree?
Well, in news away from politics, GBNews can reveal at least 800 people have crossed the English Channel in small boats in the last 5 days since the authorities broke up an international people smuggling ring. Around 350 people have been taken off 9 small boats attempting to make the crossing today. Last Wednesday, the UK's National Crime Agency announced that 39 people had been arrested as part of a multinational investigation. However, sources in France have told GB News that gangs had managed to hide a number of small boats close to the beaches of northwestern France. Here, a 15-year-old boy has been sentenced to life for the murder of the schoolgirl Ava White. The teenager has to serve a minimum of 13 years for the fatal stabbing of the 12-year-old in Liverpool last November. The defendant, who hasn't been named, claimed he accidentally stabbed Ava in self-defence, but a jury convicted him of murder after a 2-week trial. The Conservative Party says it'll take no further action against the MP Jamie Wallace after he was found guilty of 3 traffic offences in South Wales. The Member of Parliament for Bridgend was disqualified from driving for 6 months and fined £2,500 after failing to stop and failing to report a road traffic collision. He was also found guilty of leaving a vehicle in a dangerous position after a crash. Train drivers at 8 rail companies have voted to strike in a dispute over pay. Members of the union ASLEF backed industrial action plan for this summer. The union's General Secretary says strikes are the last resort, but they have been forced to act due to the rising cost of living. A Department for Transport spokesperson called the decision disappointing and urged union bosses to find a solution. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Dewbs and Co.
Thanks for that, Polly. Right, keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight is my panel. And guess what? This week, we're going to try something a little bit different. So don't worry, you don't need to adjust your TV sets because I've only got 2 people with me tonight, and that is deliberate. I've picked 2 of my best, 2 of my favourites. And we're going to trial this all week long. So if you are a regular viewer, you'll know I normally have 3 people. So we're going to trial the 2 and see how it works. And as you know already, I think, and I hope, it's not just my show. This is your show as well at home. So I want you to get in touch with me and tell me, do you prefer 2 panellists or 3? And who would you like them to be? No pressure. The pressure is on. I'll introduce, shall I then, tonight. So we've got Ben Habib, the former Brexit Party MEP and the CEO of First Property Group, and Labour Party Councillor Pimana Assad. And you know the drill, don't you? It's not just about us. It's about you at home as well. Get in touch with me. Let me know what is on your mind tonight. We're talking tax. We're talking leadership. We're talking the Labour Party. Talking car thefts. We've got it all going on tonight, so let me know your thoughts. You can email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk. So we already know, don't we, that there's 11, I almost added one then, there's almost 11, or currently 11 candidates who wish to replace Boris Johnson. Part of me thinks, are they mad? But nonetheless, I wonder, what is the process going to work this time around? The 1922 committee has been meeting today, and our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, is in Westminster to update us on how it's all been going. Darren, any decisions yet?
No decisions. Well, apart from the fact that we do have a new 1922 executive committee. Remember last week there were lots of talks about they're going to wait for this executive committee to see whether they change the rules to force Boris Johnson to face another leadership vote. Well, that new executive committee is in place. Must be said there's still an awful lot of Boris Johnson critics on it, but also not necessarily that many new faces. So Graham Brady, probably the most famous face of the committee, remains as chairman. In saying that, what they are now discussing is actually more important, given the fact that the Prime Minister has announced that he's resigning as Conservative leader, because they are now going to map out, Michelle, the timetable for his replacement. And we're expecting to hear that in the next hour or so. What are we expected to hear? Well, essentially how this process is going to play out in terms of the days in which we're going to see votes take place among MPs to decide who they want to back out of those 11 candidates. There are suggestions it's going to begin as early as Wednesday, with nominations closing tomorrow. We could then see a vote on Thursday. We could see a vote next Tuesday and Wednesday. The expectation in the end, though, is what they want to do is get it down to 2 people by next Thursday, when Parliament rises for its summer holidays, if you like. And those 2 names will then go towards the Conservative Party membership, and they will get to decide who ultimately becomes leader and essentially our next Prime Minister. The other interesting thing, though, that this committee meeting right now is going to decide on is the threshold, if you like, for the number of MPs who have to be backing you in order to get into each round. At the moment, there's only 8 MPs, but there are some of those 11 candidates who haven't publicly got the backing of 8 MPs. There are suggestions, though, it could be increased as high as 20, maybe even more than that. And again, at the moment, the only 2 candidates who've got that total of 20 or above are Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt. Now, clearly half of the party hasn't publicly declared who they're backing, so those numbers will change. But it looks like they would take a slightly tougher line. There may be some of those 11 candidates who, frankly, won't even make it into the first round, will have to drop out. And again, it'll be interesting to see who they will back to become the next leader.
Oh, it sounds like an episode of The X Factor and then some, Darren. Thanks for that update. Right, one of the key policies for whoever the next Prime Minister will be is going to be tax, isn't it? The Tory party is traditionally the party of low tax, and so far, pretty much every single candidate except the former Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, says that they are going to lower taxes. But what does that actually mean, and how will it work, and how will the UK then pay for funding? I was going to say the NHS, but pretty much everything needs more money, or it seems to at the moment, doesn't it? Ben Habib, I'm going to start with you on this one. Where do you stand in terms of making the UK a much lower tax base in the first place?
Well, I think I'd step back from that question. I'd go one step back and I'd ask myself the question, you know, what is it that we're trying to achieve out of a lower tax base? You know, what are we driving at? And there are two major issues that the country faces at the moment. The first is the cost of living crisis. So I'd be looking at taxes that particularly impact the working and middle classes. Because the cost of living crisis, by the way, is not a crisis for the wealthy. It's a crisis for the working and middle classes. So we need to look at taxes that are going to help them overcome the difficulties they're facing. Those taxes are pretty obvious, I think. The national insurance, which was increased, should go back to where it was before. We should be reducing the tax on fuel, which is vast. 48% of the cost of fuel is, goes in taxes. We should eliminate VAT on domestic fuel, which is an EU-imposed VAT rule that we should now get rid of. And I would also, it's gone out of my head. There was a fourth tax.
It sounded really good.
It was very good.
Yes.
So, you know, for the cost of living crisis, those are the kinds of taxes I would cut. And then we need to look at growth in the economy. And that's where the Conservatives have really fallen short. And to drive growth, we've got to cut taxes, obviously, that prevent growth. But there's more to it than that. We've also got to cut regulations. And I was surprised that the 11 candidates have been really light on regulatory policies, how we cut back the regulations, for example, that we've inherited from the EU. Because if you don't reform regulation in effect is another tax on business. So in order to get the economy going, I would cut corporation tax. I wouldn't be raising it.
What would you cut it to what?
To 15%. Sajid Javid, I was really impressed by Sajid Javid. I'm generally not very impressed by him, but it was very good that he came straight out and said, instead of increasing corporation tax from 19 to 25%, which is what Rishi Sunak has promised to do next year, I'm going to cut it to 15%. And so I would do that. I would cut business rates, which are completely over the top. They penalise small and medium-sized businesses. And I would ditch net zero, which is the biggest, most pernicious, effectively a regressive tax again on the working and middle classes, and cost this country about $50 billion a year between now and 2050. That's what they have to do.
Well, I think I could probably detect some of you guys cheering at home then when you said about net zero. When you said your net zero comment, I bet lots of you at home would have said, yes, get it scrapped. Am I right or am I wrong? Get in touch with me and tell me. I've got some questions for you on your little plans, but I'll pause them and ask Pamana her thoughts on it all first.
So I don't think any of the candidates have what it takes to fix the issues that are facing the United Kingdom at this moment. I think we're stuck. We're stuck in a crisis of a Conservative leadership race. There's no plan to try and challenge some of the things that are happening. We've got long queues for people waiting for hospital appointments with the NHS or operations. We've got long queues for passports. We've got public services, broken completely. We've got low growth. And we've seen nearly 14 years of Tory failure, I think. And I agree with Ben on, the challenges that we face. It is a cost of living crisis that is impacting working people. And I think that what Keir Starmer said today was really key in trying to change the situation for working people. We've committed to making the tax system fairer. And one of the pledges of the Labour Party is getting rid of business rates, because I think that would help level up the playing field between small business and big business. That's literally what we need, because we have so many small businesses in the UK. And one of the other things that the Labour Party have said that they'll do is remove the VAT exemption for private schools. to try and level the playing field in education.
I mean, the charitable status of the best educational establishments
No, I mean,
in the country.
why should they have charitable status when people are paying for the school?
Because they actually provide a huge charitable service. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, I am aware of that because we have Harrow School in Harrow and they provide lots of donations and things for the community.
Yeah, I mean, you are literally advocating damaging one of the greatest British institutions, which is the private educational system.
That's fine. We're not saying we're getting rid of it. We're not saying we're getting rid of it.
Effectively will.
But what we're saying is it will continue. It's just they'll get rid of the VAT exemption.
No. I mean, that is so typically Labour. Find something that's working incredibly well and damage it.
No, that's not damaging.
Hang on, because all of this has got nothing to do with tax. So
it does. It's the removal of charitable status.
Yeah, but I'm really interested in terms of, you know, like let's just pick income tax as one example. So all of the candidates today, they're jumping over themselves, they're falling over themselves to say we're going to lower taxes, we'll do it from day one, we'll cut this one, we'll cut that one, we'll cut the other one. I've got some questions for Ben in a second about his thoughts. What would you do with income tax, for example?
Well, I personally would make sure that we look at the threshold of the 20%, 40% and where exactly we're taxing people. You look at doctors, they're earning 60k and they're being taxed 40%. What does that leave you in your paycheck at the end of the day to be able to afford a house, a mortgage,
but your whole...
So you want to reduce the higher rate of tax? Really?
Well,
I wasn't even going to go there, Penmana.
No, what I'm saying is making it fairer. Looking at the facts and making it fairer, because that is the point. Because people don't feel like the tax system is fair and it's not giving them what they need. Why should you go to school for 6 years and work really hard to become a doctor? You're saving people's lives and then get taxed extortionate amount on a really low income.
But you don't, hang on a second, you don't get taxed an extortionate amount on a really low income because the 40% is only going to apply to whatever it is over the 50 grand threshold, so say like 10 grand or whatever.
But if we look at the cost of living crisis, is 50 grand enough to live on?
Well, look, we've got a real problem.
Is it enough to buy a house? Is it enough to buy a mortgage? Is it enough to
Well, it's significantly higher than the average salary in the country.
I understand that. It's significantly higher, but this is what I mean. We need to look at the threshold of tax and see
I mean,
if it's
Pamana's
fair.
hit on a really good point, which is that actually what we've got in this country is not 6 months of cost of living crisis. This is a problem that's been building, and I accept it, over 12 years of Conservative Party government, where you've had inflation in the economy before the current spike of 25%, and you've had wage growth of about 5% in nominal terms. So in real terms, we've seen wages collapse in this country while costs have gone up. Everyone is in difficulty. You know, you hit the top 3 to 5% of earners once you earn more than £80,000 a year. And you try getting by on £80,000 a year in London. I know it's a privilege to get that.
I was going to say, in London, I mean, if you went to, say, Hull, where I'm from, with 80 grand, you'd have a nice life. A very nice life,
in London.
I would say.
Yeah, but you try getting... It's
different all across the country.
It is different across the country.
We need a fair...
But I take your point completely, that taxes are clobbering people. I wasn't going to go to income tax, because that's not a place...
But I think income tax is the thing that impacts people, because it's what they take home at the end of the day, and it's what pays the bills, it's what keeps, you know, the lights on. That is what is impacting people.
But the problem we've really got in the United Kingdom, the real problem, is a burden of... we're a highly regulated, highly taxed economy, and we've got to get over that. Rishi Sunak wanting to increase taxes is utterly mad. We now have the highest tax rate as a percentage of GDP since World War II.
I think this is where you and I agree, because I don't think Rishi should be Prime Minister. He's raised tax on...
Well, Rishi's got us into this problem. He talks about grown-up politics, about being serious. He got us here. And he wants to do more of the same. I mean, didn't Einstein say, you know, doing the
definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
And expecting a different result. I mean, Rishi Sunak needs his head examined. At least the other 10 candidates understand we've got to cut tax.
But in fairness to him, though, he's got consistency. Whether you agree with his policies or not. Yeah, whether you agree with it or not. But what I'm interested about, so you all want to cut all this tax and all the rest of it. Well, how are you going to pay for all the things that need paying for
That is a fundamentally flawed question, if you don't mind me saying so, Michelle.
Why is it?
Because you absolutely proven time and time again that when you pay taxes and you get economic growth, the exchequer actually gets richer. You balance the books through growth. You never balance the books through austerity and by raising taxes. That's where Rishi, and I'm afraid Keir Starmer, just completely wrong. Keir Starmer talks about £200 billion worth of promises made by Tory candidates. Over the weekend, they haven't, by the way. They've all promised tax cuts. No one's mentioned spending so far. So he's got that fundamentally wrong. But you do not tax your way out of a debt problem. You do not tax your way out of low growth. The way to grow the exchequer's income is by cutting taxes. We are too highly taxed, and I come back to it again, too highly regulated.
But who is too highly taxed? Who are you talking about exactly?
Mostly the working classes and middle classes.
I agree with that.
You know, and it is VAT, it is tax on fuel, it's all those taxes which... But business rates, which you rightly mentioned...
And Labour has a plan. We want to cut business rates. We want to remove business rates completely, actually. And I think in Keir's speech, he was very clear. He said it's about wealth creation. It's about making Britain richer. And he said we want to buy, sell and make more in the UK. We want to cut red tape, the five-point plan for Northern Ireland and Brexit that he was talking about. One of them is cutting red tape, making the supply chain issues for Brexit work.
But you say, I'm going to say something highly unpopular now, because I know that you're not allowed to stick up for the wealthy in this country anymore, but I'm going to do it for a moment, indulge me. Because you say, you know, who's taxed too much at the moment, it's the people at the bottom. But actually, I would say that when you start taking 45% of someone's earnings, so let's call it almost half, when you start taking almost half of somebody's money off them, to me, you're bordering onto a zone where you're de-incentivising people to be operating in a fair, decent way with their taxes. Because why should anybody have to hand over around half of their earnings?
But
why?
The question is, it's about profits and how much profit are you making?
No, that's my question. And my question to you is, as a higher earner, higher taxpayer, why should somebody have to pay almost half of their money in income tax? 45%.
You don't even have to be a higher earner to be paying that percentage.
Because if you're paying 60k,
you're paying a massive sum. You're paying a massive sum.
I'm talking about 150 plus. So to lots of people watching this programme, earning over 150k is, you know, you're very wealthy indeed.
Right.
Yeah. And when you're in that territory, you're paying 45% of that money. You lose your personal allowance,
but
so you don't get any...
fair. This is what we're saying. The Labour Party is saying that we need to look at that again and make a fairer tax system.
No, I would make it less.
You'd make it less?
Yes, I would.
Absolutely. Tax generally needs to come down. I personally wouldn't go to income tax first, because I don't think that's really the crux of the problem right now. What we've got is a cost of living crisis and a problem with growth. And the problem with growth you address through business and the private sector, and the problem with the cost of living crisis you address by cutting taxes that hit the working classes and the middle classes. You know, don't forget the middle classes. They're just about managing. Do you remember that wonderful speech
What do you call middle class?
Well, anyone earning up to about £80,000 a year is middle class. I mean, we have a massive... Anything over 25,000 through to 80 is middle class.
I mean, lots of people probably wouldn't define it like that, though.
Well, the average wage is 25,000. I'd say anything beyond that is.
What you think 20? So you think someone that earns 30 grand a year is middle class?
I think you are middle class.
No, I don't agree with that.
Where would you?
I think
would you call them working class? I mean,
I would call them working class.
Well, it's semantics now.
Because it's really difficult to live on 30k.
It is,
especially in a place like London.
Okay, well, I'm saying it's very difficult for the middle class to live. I think it's very,
I agree.
Very
it's difficult because prices are rising, and I agree with you that it's about growth, it's about business, it's about helping.
You know, if you're a nurse, you've been to uni, you're well educated, you are part of the educated class, if you like, and you're earning 30,000 a year. So, I mean, whether you define class through education or through what you're taking home, it's kind of a moot point. The fact is, you know, the country is over-costed. We've got a problem with costs in the United Kingdom, and that's regulatory and taxation. And any chancellor or any would-be prime minister that wants to exacerbate the problem with net zero, exacerbate the problem with increased taxes, trying to tax their way out and hammer the populace with austerity is a lunatic. It's just lunacy.
Rishi Sunak raised national insurance. And Labour voted against it because we didn't.
And I think Rishi Sunak should.
It was the wrong tax at the wrong time.
He should resign. He should resign his contestant position for prime ministerial. For the prime ministerial role.
Well, Ranjit's been in touch and says the heat is obviously affecting your guests. The vast majority of Londoners wouldn't dream, basically, of being able to earn £60,000 a year. Joe says, Michelle, never mind all this. If we had a referendum, most people would vote Boris back in. It would never happen. But how must the candidates feel knowing how the ordinary people out there want Boris back? Kevin says Dominic Raab gets my vote for Prime Minister. James says cutting income tax and court tax is a small step. They should be cutting the hidden tax like sugar tax and green taxes. Paddy says the next net zero taxes must go now. Bridget says, has everyone forgotten why national insurance was increased? The NI increase was to pay for social care. The long-standing problem was finally being addressed, and now everybody is calling for it to be scrapped. Bridget, I've got to say, they're putting that money initially into the NHS to help with some of the backlogs there, but you do raise a very good point. That was a very unpopular move, wasn't it, the national insurance rise? But it was done, as you rightly point out, to help look at how do we fund social care. So when you're cutting all of these taxes and all of these plans, what do you put in their place? That is a very good question that you raise. gbviews@gbnews.uk is the email that you can get in touch with and tell me your thoughts tonight. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has said that the Tories need to put their money where their mouth is and call a general election. Is he right? He's also had his plan, announced his plan for what he's going to do to help the country. We'll have all that and more after the break. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Coming up on The Mark Steyn Show, as the race to find a Tory party leader heats up, former Brexit Minister Lord Frost joins for his first and exclusive interview since Boris Johnson's resignation. Eva Vlaardingerbroek will be asking why nothing is being done about the police who have been opening fire at Dutch farmers protesting environmental policy. Plus, after receiving an unannounced interrogation from West Mercia Police following her last appearance on The Mark Steyn Show, Telford grooming victim Samantha Smith is back to grill the bill. All that and more on The Mark Steyn Show tonight at 8 o'clock.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs and Co with me until 7 o'clock tonight. My panel, 2, not 3 tonight. If you're wondering where the third one's gone, they're not late. They're just not here tonight because for 1 week only, we're going to trial 2 panellists. And I want you to get in touch with me and tell me what you prefer, 2 or 3. Keeping me company tonight, the 2. Ben Habib, who's the former Brexit Party MEP and the CEO of First Property Group, and the Labour Party councillor, Pimana Assad. We've just been debating in the break, still, that conversation about fairness and all the rest of it. And we had a really interesting conversation, and I stopped it because I said, just hold that thought and let's have it when we come back on air, because you were just saying then we need a fairer society. So Pimana was saying, Why should people be able to take home millions if some other people are using food banks? And Ben was saying, well, that's basically politics of envy.
And I don't agree with that, because I think there's collective responsibility.
But what do you
we
mean
live in a
collective
society.
responsibility?
No, but here's the thing. We live in a society. We all pay into the pot, and that pot gets distributed to our public services that we all use, like the NHS.
Yeah.
We all pay to contribute towards the running of the NHS. So are you saying that's not a fair system, that we shouldn't have that?
I just don't understand what you're saying. Because a billionaire will pay more tax
Yeah.
than someone who earns
Yeah, I
30,000
understand.
a year.
And
so
I
they are
think that
paying
there
more
should
into
be
the pot.
but I think
and they
there
probably
should be
don't
a
even they
tax
probably don't
on-
even use the NHS. They'll go private.
They do probably go private. But what I'm saying is, why shouldn't those people be taxed a little bit more than the others?
But they are taxed.
Yes, and that's fine. And you're saying they shouldn't be. You're saying we should cut their rate.
They pay a hell of a lot more. I mean, if you earn $1 million a year on the 45, but just forget about the bands for a second. Just say you earn $1 million a year, paying 45%. You pay $450,000 a year in taxes. It's massive.
Yeah, and what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
No, nothing's wrong with that.
That's fine then.
You were saying that you should punish billionaires.
No, I never
Take
said
their
we
money
should
away.
punish. No, I never said we should punish them.
Yeah.
I said that they should be taxed in order to be able to give into that pot that all of us use from.
We already have a progressive tax system.
You tell me, where do you stand on this brief question? Because, you know, do you think we should live in a society where on the one hand you've got people taking home millions and then on the other hand you've got people on food banks? Do you think that is a fair society, or do you think that's a broken society? I'm interested in your thoughts on that one. Now, we all know, don't we, unless you've been asleep, that the Tories are having a leadership competition. But I've got to say, it's not just over that side of the fence that there's lots of goings on, because the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has today outlined his priorities. He basically wants another general election. He will say that Labour's going to reboot the economy, revitalise the public services, unite the country, clean up politics and end the cost of living crisis. And one of my favourites, he's going to re-energise our communities. It sounds good. But what does it even mean, Pamana, all that?
Well, it means a lot. It means that Keir Starmer has finally been cleared of the Beergate situation, and now he can put forward the plan that Labour has been working on. I mean, Gordon Brown and David Blunkett are working on these plans and policies for the Labour Party. And, you know, Keir Starmer's talking about making Britain richer, making Brexit work, buying, selling, making more in the UK, having a 5-point plan for Northern Ireland, you know, the Northern Ireland Protocol, the deal with the European Union, more climate investments so we can move away and go towards net zero, actually. So it is. It's about the economy. It's about public services. It's about our communities and bringing our communities together.
Flannel.
No, I think
it was
these
utter
weren't.
and
No, it
total
wasn't.
flannel.
No, it
the
wasn't.
man talks about integrity. He's got contempt for democracy. He voted 48 times against getting us out of the European Union.
Because he believed in
the only thing that
that's not criminal, you know, Ben, having a different opinion.
No, it's anti-democratic.
No, it's not.
The only thing of substance in his I've got his thing here. The only thing of substance here is he's going to spend another 28 billion a year on the environment. Keir Starmer. The problem Keir Starmer's got is the Conservative Party has moved so far to the left that he's increasingly getting detached from reality and going even further to the left to try and open up a gap with the Conservatives. I'm afraid the Conservatives have stolen his clothes and he doesn't know where to go. And this notion that he can call a vote of no confidence in Parliament and have it now is ridiculous. The Conservatives are never going to vote in favour of that.
No, I don't
but
think
that shows his disconnect with reality.
No, I don't
Why
think
is he wasting parliamentary time calling a vote of no confidence, which he is going to lose?
There is no vote of confidence right now.
But he's claiming that he's going to call...
Yes, because he wants the Conservative Party to get its house in order and hurry up and get a new leader, because we're waiting for all these plans that the Conservative Party has said that they have.
That's not what he wants. He wants an election.
Well, yes, we do, because we want change. 12 years of Tory failure, the highest inflation
so what does
in 70
he do?
years.
He puts Gordon Brown.
Growth.
He puts Gordon Brown in charge. This Gordon Brown was
Gordon
the guy...
Brown who helped us save the economy in 2008, Ben.
Are you kidding me?
No,
Gordon
I am
Brown,
being serious.
Gordon Brown,
that is the truth.
When Gordon Brown left office,
he's respected all around the world.
Don't talk over each other, you two. Right. What's wrong with Gordon Brown? I'll come to you and then you can respond.
Gordon Brown bankrupted the country. When he left office, I can't remember the name of his Treasury Minister. They left a note on the desk for the incoming Conservative Party minister saying, sorry, no more money or something to that effect. I mean, they left the country bankrupt. That's when we started QE. That's when we had to print money in order to bail out the banks that they couldn't regulate and look after, oversee properly. Gordon Brown's a disaster. Gordon Brown's part of the establishment that devolved the country's institutions and created the problems in Northern Ireland, in Scotland and in Wales. Gordon Brown should be nowhere near government.
Why are you saying no?
Because I think devolution works. I mean, if you look at Wales,
yeah, really, look at it.
Well, it does. Yes, it does. Because if you look at Wales, it has a Labour government, and when you go and take your prescription to the pharmacy, you don't have to pay for it. That's devolution, because the people of Wales want something different.
So they got something for free, and that's a sign that it works?
Well, yes, it is, because it's free at point of use, and people in the UK people in England have to pay for their prescription.
All devolution.
And it's really expensive.
All devolution
works because it puts power back into the hands of local communities.
All
and
devolution.
Communities get to decide what policies
Absolutely
and what
not.
laws they're governed by. Yes.
No, what devolution? The devolution we've got gives a soapbox for separatists like the lunatic Sturgeon and Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland to attack the United Kingdom without any responsibility, knowing that actually Westminster will bail them out time and time again.
I'm
Devolution, as delivered by your party, by Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, is a fundamental failure for the Union of the United Kingdom. We have problems in Scotland because of it. We have problems in Northern Ireland because of it. We have Sinn Féin...
They actually won the referendum
Sinn
in 2014,
Féin refuses to take its seats in Westminster. That's the contempt it has for our country. They shouldn't be allowed to... I would abolish Stormont, I'd abolish Holyrood, and I'd abolish the Assembly in Wales. We should have one government which sits in Westminster. Devolution's a disaster.
We do have one government, and it does sit in Westminster, and devolution helps govern the United Kingdom.
No, it doesn't.
It gives back it gives back power to local communities. I think it does work. I think you need to travel more a bit.
I do.
UK.
I do travel.
Maybe go to Wales, Scotland.
I go to Belfast all the time, by the way.
There you go. He needs to travel. That's what Pamana says. And all this is fascinating, Pamana, but I'm not sure that it actually tells me anything about rebooting our economy, revitalising our public services and re-energising our communities.
I mean, come on, how much more do you want? I mean, Keir Starmer said he wants to help the UK buy, make and sell more in
It's
Britain.
vacuous
He wants
platitudes.
To remove red tape.
It's vacuous platitudes.
How are you going to help?
Red tape with the supply chains for the EU and various other things. But obviously, we don't have these clear, set policies in place at the moment.
Why not?
I mean, look at the Conservative Party. What mess they're in. What exactly can we oppose that they're putting forward? One. And two, as we get closer to the general election, Labour's plan will be more clearer. And as I said, Gordon Brown, David Blunkett, they're looking at these policies.
But what are you waiting for?
What do you mean what we're waiting for?
I mean, what are you waiting for?
I mean, we've set out a plan. We're saying that these are three priorities: the economy,
they're not
public
priorities,
services,
they're sentences.
and communities.
Reboot the economy, revitalise public services and re-energise our community. I'll pick the last one. What does re-energising our communities mean?
It's a vacuous platitude.
Let her answer, because she might have a great answer for it. What does re-energising our communities mean?
It means giving back power to local communities, making sure that local government is properly funded. At the moment, we don't see properly funded local government. For example, my council in Harrow does not get the same type of deal that other inner-city London boroughs do. That's just a London issue. And we are worse off for it. We don't have enough money to spend on some of the services that we run as a council. It's about looking at some of the deeper issues that impact. These are not sexy slogans for you know,
the
these
absence
campaigns.
Of a sexy slogan is an excuse for not coming up with anything concrete.
The Conservative Party have all been about slogans. I mean, look at the bus issue with Brexit. £350 million for the NHS a week. Where was that? Not delivered. There's lots.
It is delivered, by the way. It has actually been delivered now.
But here's the thing.
It has been delivered.
This is a populist
and
slogan
and more. Yeah.
Slogan government that hasn't delivered for people in the UK, and we're worse off for it.
All right. Well, very quickly then, tell me. Reboot the economy. What's that mean? You say you're going to make stuff and do...
Buy, make, sell more in Britain.
How?
Making sure that, one, getting rid of business rates, for example, helping more businesses go online, getting them access to global markets, things like that.
Yeah, but, OK, but you just said something mutually exclusive there. You said to build more in the United Kingdom and sell more here. That is essentially a protectionist policy That is basically saying you're going to put tariffs on goods coming into the UK. Because that's how
No,
you...
that's not. That hasn't said anything. It's a statement.
That is how
And
you
the policy
protect producers. And if you talk about a global economy... And you can't square that by saying we're going to be globalist in our trade policy. I mean, that's the problem with Labour. You say a lot of things, none of which add up.
Oh, my God, that's coming from a Conservative who's all about sexy slogans but not real policy.
I'm not about sexy
slogans. That have actually delivered for people. Why are we in a cost of living crisis? Why aren't these issues being sorted out? Why is it that
we're in a cost of living
crisis?
crisis?
Why are the Conservative Party fighting against each other? Why are we in the middle of a
crisis?
Why are we in the middle of a Conservative Party leadership race? Why do not have a Prime Minister that can actually put out a plan to help people right now?
We are in a cost of living crisis.
Do you want an answer or not? Because he's trying to give you an answer.
We are in a cost of living crisis because of lockdowns. Lockdowns which would have been much more severe under Labour. If Keir Starmer had had his way, we would never have unlocked. One thing you've got to give Boris Johnson credit for was the accelerated vaccine programme and unlocking and having the courage to unlock against all that ridiculous rhetoric from across the aisle suggesting that we should never unlock.
No,
I mean,
it
we
was
still be
not
locked
about
down.
never unlocking. It was about safety and making sure that we don't...
Keir Starmer would have...
You do know COVID is on the rise again right now.
So what?
We're not. Nobody's looking at it.
So is cancer. We've got 7 million...
Nobody's looking at it.
Yeah, there were 4 million on the waiting list.
We have monkeypox. Nobody's talking about that.
There were 4 million on the NHS.
Brilliant. I don't want people talking about monkeypox. It's very deliberate on this show, at least, not to talk about monkeypox, because I am sick to the back teeth of everyone trying to terrify absolutely everyone over absolutely everything. So it's deliberate that I'm not talking about that, by the way. But very quickly, because I do need to go to a break. I'm getting told off not going to a break. But you just said lockdowns didn't cause the cost of living crisis.
No, I never said that. I said Labour wasn't against opening up the economy. We were for opening up the economy. But here's the thing. We were for opening up the economy. What we weren't for is putting people who are very vulnerable and who were scared. It was a global pandemic. We were in a difficult situation.
Lockdowns were a disaster. Let's just get this straight.
We wanted to open up the economy at the right time.
Do you concede that the lockdowners had a direct impact on the situation now?
Of course they did. Of course they did. Of course
we must never, ever lock down again.
We needed a sensible plan to move us forward.
We must never lock down again.
And that was the risk that Boris Johnson took.
Well, there you go. We need a sensible plan, and they've produced it. Reboot the economy, revitalise our public services and re-energise our communities. Are you convinced? gbviews@gbnews.uk is the email that you can get in touch with me and tell me what you think about that. Now, have you had your car? Have you got a car? I can hear you at the screen going, chance would be a fine thing to even be able to afford a car these days. But have you got one? Have you ever had it broken into? Did the police do anything about it? I've got to say, I bet the answer to that is probably not. Tell me about that, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, after Boris Johnson is unceremoniously ousted from number 10, his closest ally Nadine Dorries breaks her silence in an unmissable exclusive interview. Unshakably loyal to the very end, the Culture Secretary will speak out against the Boris betrayers that have put the Tory party in jeopardy, and the baying MSM who finally got their man. Plus, she'll reveal what went on in Downing Street as the PM made his last stand. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory. twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go? Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs and Co with me until 7 o'clock tonight. A reminder that I've only got 2, not 3 people joining me tonight. That's very deliberate because I'm trialling this out for 1 week to see what you guys at home prefer. Someone just been in touch and said, I really like it with just 2 people because the third panellist is us, the audience. I agree with that. I like that. Anyway, my 2 tonight, Ben Habib, who's the former Brexit Party MEP and the CEO of First Property Group, and Labour Party councillor Pimana Assad. Let me know all your thoughts on what we're discussing, by the way, gbviews at gbnews.uk. Now, as you'll know, Farage joins us at 7 o'clock tonight, but Patrick Christie will be keeping company instead. Patrick, good evening.
Yes. Good evening, Michelle. Absolutely loved the show. Yes, I'll be filling in for Nigel Farage all week, and I absolutely cannot wait. We're going to kickstart your week with a bumper show. So we're going to analyse the runners and the riders of the Tory leadership election. Supposedly, anyway, they've all come out in favour of the Rwanda plan. What plan? It's just foreign aid, isn't it? We've not sent anybody to Rwanda. So we're going to be analysing all of that. Also, we're going live to a Dutch farmer, that's right, it's like the Canadian trucker protest, but this time it's Dutch, and they're going to be basically protesting against net zero. We're going live to that, and then we've got Andy Mayer, who's going to give you all of the facts, really, on net zero, and we've got a bodyguard on for Talking Pints, basically to tell us how not to get assassinated, essentially, in light of course, what happened, unfortunately, in Japan. All of that coming your way very, very shortly.
Sounds good. We'll see you at 7 o'clock, Patrick. Right. Have you got a car? I was asking you that, wasn't I, at the start? Have you got a car? Have you ever had it nicked, or have you ever had anything stolen from it? Get this, last year there were almost 89,000 thefts from cars in England and Wales. That's about 244 cars a day. And in the London area, the Met Police managed to solve just half of 1%. I almost laugh when I say that because I'm not hearing things. Just half of 1% of those crimes have been resolved. Pimana, I'm going to come to you first on this. Have we got to a point in society now where, there's just certain crimes that you can get away with?
Unfortunately, I think that is the case. Sometimes the police, when you go to them with certain issues, they say this is not a priority. We don't have the resources. We can't go and solve this issue. And I think this issue specifically, the catalytic converter theft, is so common in northwest London now. People are having to pay thousands of pounds out of their own pocket to try and refit these catalytic converters into their cars. And they're very traumatizing. I was witness to one of these in my own ward and constituency in Harrow. And they had crowbars and they were threatening the family that came out to try and stop them from taking it. But within seconds, they were gone. And I was there for the police response. The police came 10 minutes later. We said, they went that way. This is the car. This is the registration number. And they said, well, that's probably a stolen car, fake plates, and we probably won't catch them if we go after them now. It's organised crime and it's really difficult to stop. And I think why is this difficult to stop when it's on the rise? They're criminal gangs, we know. We can go to scrap metal dealers and try and stop them from selling to scrap metal dealers, because what they do is melt the catalytic converters and then sell them on for money. I just don't understand why the police aren't taking this as a priority when it's traumatising communities up and down the country, but also specifically in London.
Yeah, I tweeted a video, by the way, of one of these catalytic converters being stolen. It was bright daylight. The 2 guys doing it, they couldn't care less, quite frankly. They were incredibly brazen. Ben Habib, where do you stand on all this?
Well, I mean, obviously I agree that we've got to stamp down on it. But I think as the economy worsens and people get into more financial difficulty, we're going to see more of it. It's always been that way. And by the way, stealing cars and radios out of cars and stuff, I mean, it's something that's gone unpunished in London for many, many years. I remember when I first came to London in 1987, when I first started work, a guy broke into my car. He was stabbing at the dashboard at 5 a.m. It was a sunny morning, 5 a.m. Summer. And I leant out of my window and said, "Oi, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm taking your radio." But I didn't smash the window. Someone else has smashed it. I'm just taking your radio. I sort of had this conversation with this guy. So I mean, it's nothing new.
And what did you say back? All right then, mate. Cheers.
No, I said, get the...
There's some CDs. Excuse me. There's some CDs in the glove compartment. You've got them. Take those as well while you're at it.
It was in the days when radios were worth something. I had tapes, and he was stabbing, and he did more damage stabbing the dashboard with his screwdriver trying to get this thing out. Thank God you can't do that anymore. So it's catalytic converters. And, I think the view the police take is that it's really, let the insurance company sort it out. This is an insured risk. The drivers can go and get the money back. We'll deal with something really serious, like someone not wearing a mask when they should be wearing a mask.
Jacqueline.
I don't think so. I mean,
Jacqueline has emailed in saying it's the theft of tools from vans. She says this is a massive problem in Barnet, which is in London. My son's vehicles are constantly broken into for steal. They steal tools and ladders. She says the police are just not interested. Dave says this is all because the country has become far too liberal on crime. The do-gooders, he says, has destroyed any sense of punishment. He goes on to say that he knows people that have been in prisons multiple times. He says that I'm all for second chances, etc., but there has to be a limit. And John says, when my car was stolen for the 4th time, it didn't come back. The police were just not interested. It was just another stolen car to them. But John was having none of it. He played detective, found the culprit, but not the car. Nothing was done, and the car was gone. Gabriel says that my daughter had her car stolen in Manchester. The keys were stolen from a bag, there was CCTV there, and the police were simply not interested. Now, I have to say, if you can kind of do these things and get away with it, then it does almost, I hate to even imagine it, but I imagine that it would motivate other people around. Say, well, he's done it, they've done it, and there's been no consequence. But in this day and age, Pimana, you've got to prioritise what the police spend their time doing. So you would presumably prioritise, I don't know, whatever, knife crime, for example, over catalytic converters, would you?
Well, I think it's a difficult one. I think every area faces different issues, and you have to look at the statistics of what is impacting different areas. In northwest London, catalytic converter theft is really a big issue right now, and it will have its peaks and its downfalls. But I've gone to the police, I've had conversations with the police about this, and I've said, why are you not prioritising this? And they said, well, because one, it's a criminal aspect of this. There's criminal gangs involved, and it needs real resources and ability for police officers to come together to investigate and actually carry out...
That's a declaration of abrogation of obligation. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's why I'm shocked. That's why I want the police to prioritise this issue specifically in northwest London, because it's a huge cost to people. And you're right, Ben, there is a cost of living crisis, but I don't think that this is just because of people, struggling and therefore going out and stealing. But I think there is a criminal aspect to this, and we need to look at this wider. I think, obviously, education and jobs, we need to target that and help people. But there is a criminal aspect to this. There are criminal gangs who are targeting people because they make money from this. And that's what needs to be stopped. And they aren't just coming from, for example, Harrow. They're coming from other boroughs. They're coming from other places. And this is taking place across the country.
What would you do with these people, by the way, if you found someone and there was indeed nicking catalytic converters or whatever else? What should the punishment be? Because I think Dave's point is that we're all too soft these days, and that's why people think that they can go away and get away with doing pretty much whatever they want. Bruce says, when you were just talking about devolution there, you guys... Basically, you've got no conception, he says, of the damage being done. Scotland, he says, is divided in a way that it never was before. Linda has said that she's loved the show tonight and the panel have cheered her up no end. There you go, no end. There you go, well done. So, thank you very much, Pimana and Ben. Thank you very much for your company. You've cheered Linda up, if nothing else. Linda, we hope you have a good night, and so too, everybody else. Have a wonderful evening. What will we be talking about tomorrow? I wonder who else will have put their hat in the ring to be our next Prime Minister. Who will it be next? Have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for your company.
Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Very warm out there this evening, a difficult night for sleeping ahead as things stay pretty sticky and humid. Tomorrow, another fine day of hazy sunshine in the south, but things are changing further north. There's a weather front on the way, and it's a cold front which will slowly be introducing slightly cooler conditions, but not for the time being. High pressure is still dominating a very warm evening and a very warm night to come. But here comes that weather front, bringing cloud and some rain to parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, particularly through the early hours. It will eventually bring some cooler conditions into the extreme northwest, but for most of us, we're looking at temperatures mid to high teens in parts of eastern England. May not drop below 20 Celsius, so a very warm start to Tuesday. Hot, hazy sunshine again for the southern half of the UK, but a different day for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Thicker cloud through the central belt, Northern Ireland. Could bring some patchy rain at times, although that will tend to fizzle out. Brighter skies will follow across the far north, some sunny spells developing here. With more cloud for England and Wales, perhaps not quite as high the temperatures, but still over 30 Celsius across the southeast. As we go through the evening, a bit more thick cloud just spilling into the Midlands and South Wales might produce the odd spot of rain, but for most it stays dry. Some showers will continue to feed in across northern Scotland. And then into Wednesday, well, for most, it's another dry and sunny day. But this line of cloud across the south at first, that is that weather front that's moved through. So temperatures won't be as high on Wednesday. And we'll continue with some showers and a brisk wind across northern Scotland. Mid-teens here, low 20s for most, but still in the south we could get 27 or 28. Not as hot as today and tomorrow, so temperatures ticking down a little bit midweek. However, early days, but on Sunday we are concerned